Do you think that the lawmakers are starting to catch up to public sentiment on Ukraine?
For me, it isn't so much about Ukraine. I think it is McConnell's statement that Ukraine was the number one priority. Right. And I think that's where you have the failure in the House, in that the Republicans' best strategy was to pick something, one thing, and make that their ask. And they just have not been able to do that. And politics is a team sport. And unless Republicans are able to get together and come up with an ask on the border, then I think they're going to lose the shutdown fight.
Welcome to the Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here today with commentary editor Conn Carroll. And Conn, Republicans, a few of them in the House, are objecting to the fact that Senate and House Democrats and moderate Republicans want to send more money to Ukraine in this appropriations fight. Some of those Republicans are saying, why send that money to Ukraine when we're having a crisis at the border? Send it to the border. You made a point in a piece this week that, is there really a point in sending money to the border when the Biden administration has policies that allow migrants to just come in and stay? So explain all that.
Sure. I was struck by just the contrast between two speeches yesterday on the Senate side in particular. So you had freshman Senator Katie Britt from Alabama, who was at a press conference. She just gave this very impassioned plea about why the border crisis was so important to the country. All of the death, rape, violence that is going on down there, just what an important issue it is, and that it was Biden's fault, that it wasn't a resource issue, that it was a policy issue, and that if the policies changed, we could solve this crisis. And I thought that was just an amazingly true statement. It was very compellingly given. But then you contrast that with Senator Mitch McConnell getting up in a press conference and in his very, old statesman, very contrast to her passion, just saying, the number one priority for Republicans is Ukraine. And just the contrast between those two statements of McConnell asserting that the number one priority of the Republican Party was giving more money to Ukraine, when you have this impassioned plea from a younger member who's clearly more in touch with their voters saying, look, no, the border is the issue. This is what Americans do and should care about, and that should be our priority. And, the McConnell and the leadership of the Republican Party is just out of whack with where the people are. Yes. And that's really the point.
Right. Polls bear out that most people of both parties are really skeptical of sending more aid to Ukraine. And it seems like the House conference is starting to catch up to that. You had votes this past week on some amendments that would have stripped Ukraine funding out of spending bills. And, more than 100 Republicans voted for one of those amendments. That's more than before. Are you starting to see the tide turn? Do you think that the lawmakers are starting to catch up to public sentiment on Ukraine?
For me, it isn't so much about Ukraine. I think it is McConnell's statement that Ukraine was the number one priority. Right. And I think that's where you have the failure in the House, in that the Republicans' best strategy was to pick something, one thing, and make that their ask. And they just have not been able to do that. And politics is a team sport. And unless Republicans are able to get together and come up with an ask on the border, then I think they're going to lose the shutdown fight.
So there still seems to be no end game in the shutdown from conservatives, right? I mean, has one emerged?
No. I don't know what it is. No one knows. No one knows.
All right, I guess we'll find out after the government's shutdown. Shifting gears a little bit, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has very famously had this huge feud with Disney. It's been seemingly largely successful in that. And Washington Examiner wrote this week about how, DeSantis may be able to declare victory in that. Tell us about that.
I think so. So a financial analyst wrote about a closed-door meeting with investors that Disney CEO Bob Iger had in Orlando last week, where he said that Disney was going to turn the volume down on the culture wars, basically admitting what DeSantis had been asking Disney to do. Because remember, Disney and Bob Iger were the one who started this fight. It was Disney who said after, it was Bob Iger specifically who started this fight. After the Florida legislature passed their bill, the Parent Responsibility Act, which said that you couldn't teach about sexual orientation, age-inappropriate sexual orientation to school children, Disney actually first released an internal memo saying, you know what, this isn't our business, we shouldn't get involved. And Bob Iger was not CEO at the time, but he then attacked the current CEO and said that Disney should get involved. Disney then did get involved. DeSantis struck back, and Disney's stock prices have gone down ever since. And now he's basically admitting, look, we made a mistake. We need to get out of the culture wars.
Well, Conn, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.